Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are tackling a huge question, one that so many of us are dealing with. Why in the world is it so expensive to live in our cities? We're going to go way beyond just rent is high. We are going to break down the real mechanics behind it, and more importantly, what we can actually do to fix it.
I mean, if you've ever looked at your rent check and just felt, completely defeated, you are not alone. And no, you're not imagining it. This isn't just happening in your city, it's a global thing. And the real reasons go so much deeper than the easy answers we always hear.
And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly frames the problem we're about to unpack. Are our cities still for people to live in, to build communities in, or have they turned into something else?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we have to ask a really basic question. What even is housing today?
Now, you've heard it a million times, right? Oh, it's just supply and demand. And look, that's part of it for sure, but it's only the very tip of the iceberg. The real issue is that the whole system is kind of broken down. There's been a fundamental shift in how we even think about a home.
And this, right here, is the absolute key. The moment a home stops being primarily shelter and becomes a financial asset like a stock or a bar of gold, everything gets thrown out of whack. Prices completely detach from what normal people, teachers or firefighters or baristas, can actually earn. Instead, housing prices get tied to global financial markets. And that, right there, is where the affordability crisis is born.
So, how do we get here? Well, this didn't just happen randomly. It's really a kind of perfect storm created by two major forces that are working together to drive costs through the roof. Let's break them down.
So on one side, you've got this tidal wave of global money from huge investment firms that treat housing like it's just another number on a spreadsheet. And then, on the other side, you have these incredibly rigid, often ancient local laws that make it almost impossible to build the kinds of homes we actually need. It's the worst of both worlds.
Let's talk about that first culprit for a second, this idea of speculative investment. We're not talking about your mom and pop landlord. We're talking about massive, faceless corporations buying up entire buildings. We're talking about thousands of apartments being turned into full-time short-term rentals. And we're talking about billions of dollars being parked in city apartments, basically turning our neighborhoods into high-end storage units for cash.
And this quote just says it all. You can walk through the downtowns of some of the world's biggest cities at night and see entire towers that are dark. These homes are empty on purpose. They're investment products first, and homes, well, maybe a distant second, if at all. Their emptiness is a feature of the system, not a bug.
Okay, so that's the money side of things. But here's where it gets really fascinating, because there's this second invisible force that makes all that speculation so much more powerful. And it's something almost no one talks about. It's called zoning.
I mean, just look at this number. It is staggering. In a huge number of cities, something like 70 to 80% of the land that you can build a home on is legally reserved for only one type of building, a single-family house. Let that sink in. In a growing, dynamic city, it is literally illegal to build a duplex or a small apartment building in the vast majority of neighborhoods. We've basically frozen our cities in the 1950s.
Yeah, these rules create these invisible walls all over our cities. They're the reason you can't build a fourplex for 4 families on a piece of land where you can build a mansion for 1. They're the reason we force developers to build massive, expensive parking garages, even if they're right next to a subway stop. And they create years and years of delays and bureaucracy for any new projects. The bottom line is pretty simple. You can't solve a housing shortage when it's illegal to build enough housing.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak, right? But here is the good news. This crisis isn't inevitable. It wasn't an act of nature. It was created by policy choices. And that means it can be uncreated with better ones. So, what do those choices look like?
While the solutions are actually pretty straightforward, and they all work together. First, you just have to legalize more housing. Let people build duplexes and small apartment buildings, especially near jobs and transit. Second, you make it painful to just sit on empty homes. You tax vacancies. Third, governments can and should get back into the game of building housing for people, not for profit. And really, all of this points to one big goal: shifting the entire system's incentives back towards its original purpose, making sure everyone has a safe place to live.
You know, when you boil it all down, this is really about a fundamental choice we have to make about the future. What do we want our cities to even be for?
So, which is it going to be? Are we going to let our cities continue to become these playgrounds for global capital, these exclusive fortresses where home is just a way to store wealth? Or are we going to make the choice to build thriving, messy, vibrant communities again, where everyone who contributes to the city can actually afford to live in it?
At the end of the day, it really just comes down to this.
It's such a simple and powerful idea. The main job of a home should be to house a person, not to house money.
So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Our cities are not unaffordable by accident. It's not some law of physics. They became this way because of decades of specific choices. And you know what? That's actually a hopeful thought, because if they were designed this way, it means they can be redesigned.